Hundreds of protesters stormed the street of Washington, D.C. on November 15th, creating scenes of chaos near the White House as demonstrators chanted, "Trump must go," and demanded the fall of what they called the Trump regime. The protests, organized by the group Refugee Fascism, saw demonstrators wrapping crime scene tape around the White House perimeter while holding signs with slogans like, "Let's flush this evil clown," as tensions over newly leaked Jeffrey Epstein emails reach a boiling point. The leaked documents, which have not been independently verified but are circulating widely on social media platforms, allegedly contain communication linking former President Donald Trump to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, raising fresh questions about the nature of their relationship and potential involvement in Epstein's criminal activities. Trump has vehemently denied all allegations, dismissing the claim as a hoax orchestrated by Democratic opponents to damage his political prospect, while Republican leaders have accused Democrats of selectively cherry-picking documents to create a misleading narrative. The political fallout has spread rapidly through Washington's corridors of powers, with members of Congress from both parties expressing concern about the potential destabilizing effects on national governance at a time when global tensions are already high. Law enforcement officials reported heightened security measures around federal buildings and government facilities as organizers from Refugee Fascism promised additional protests in the coming days, warning that the movement would continue to grow in size and intensity. The situation has created a deeply polarized atmosphere in the nation's capital, with supporters of the former president gathering in counter-protests, while critics demand congressional investigations into the authenticity and implications of the leaked email. This domestic turmoil comes at a particularly sensitive moment for U.S. foreign policy, as the administration must navigate complex international relationships while managing internal political divisions that threaten to undermine America's global leadership position during a period of increasing multipolar competition. Rising tensions between Tehran and Washington have resurfaced dramatically as Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi issued a stark warning that diplomacy with the United States would only be possible if approached with respect, not pressure. His remark came amid renewed demands from the International Atomic Energy Agency for access to Iranian nuclear sites that were damaged during mysterious explosions in June, which Iranian officials claim are being used as political leverage by Western powers to extract concessions. Simultaneously, Iran's permanent representative to the United Nations reiterated that the country's nuclear rights under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty remain non-negotiable, emphasizing Tehran's sovereign right to peaceful nuclear technology regardless of international pressure. These statements followed particularly harsh comments from Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who accused Washington of deliberately fueling regional instability through its military presence and support for what he terms anti-Iranian proxies across the Middle East. The diplomatic exchange has intensified scrutiny over Iran's nuclear activity and the future of U.S.-Iran relations, with analysts warning that the window for meaningful negotiations is rapidly closing as both sides harden their positions. The situation is further complicated by Iran's expanding military relationships with Russia and China, creating a complex geopolitical landscape where traditional diplomatic channels are increasingly bypassed in favor of multilateral alliances that challenge Western dominance. Meanwhile, Serbia faces its own energy crisis as U.S. sanctions against Russian energy companies threaten to force the shutdown of the country's only oil refinery, NIS, which is majority controlled by Russian energy giants Gazprom Neft and Gazprom. Serbian energy ministers Dubravka Dedić and Handanovic warned that crude supplies are expected to run out by November 25th, with the U.S. refusing to grant an extension that would allow the refinery to continue operating beyond existing inventory levels. The sanctions have already triggered significant disruption, with payments to NIS blocked by international banks and Croatia's Janaf pipeline halting crude deliveries, creating a perfect storm that threatens Serbia's energy security as winter approaches. President Alexander Vučić has rejected the option of nationalizing the facilities, citing Serbia's continued dependence on Russian energy expertise and technology, while warning that the sanctions will harm Serbia far more than Russia, potentially putting 13,500 jobs at risk and triggering widespread fuel shortage across the Balkan nation. Serbia's energy crisis has escalated into a major geopolitical confrontation as the country accused the United States of applying extreme pressure to break its strategic alliance with Russia. Energy Minister Dubravka Handanovic has claimed that Washington is demanding Belgrade expel Russian companies, primarily Gazprom and Gazpromneft, from Serbia's energy sector as a precondition for lifting sanctions on the NIS oil refinery. The facility, which supplies more than 80% of Serbia's petroleum needs, has become the focal point of a high-stake diplomatic standoff that threatens to reshape Balkan geopolitics. Serbia is entering what President Vučić has called a decisive week, with only 7 days remaining to find a solution for the Russian-owned company before fuel supplies run critically low. During an emergency government session, ministers revealed that months of negotiations with Russian partners have failed to produce an acceptable compromise, while U.S. officials have insisted on full Russian divestment from NIS, giving the current owners just 3 months to find a buyer. The situation has been further complicated by international banks freezing NIS transactions, making it nearly impossible for the company to conduct normal business operations or secure alternative financing. Vučić has stressed Serbia's preference to avoid nationalization, but confirmed that all options, including a government takeover of management, must remain on the table if negotiations collapse completely. Serbian officials have also indicated they are prepared to make an above-market offer for the company if necessary to secure its continued operation, though such a move would require significant financial resources that the country may not possess. The ownership structure of NIS, controlled by Gazpromneft 44.9% and Gazprom 11.3%, with Serbia holding a 29.9% stakes, makes the outcome of this crisis crucial, not only for the country's economy and fuel supply, but also for its international relationship and strategic positioning between East and West. The situation has sparked widespread public anxiety across Serbia, with citizens stockpiling fuel and essential goods in anticipation of potential shortage, while neighboring countries watch nervously as the crisis threatened to spill over into regional energy markets and create broader Balkan instability. Mexico has witnessed massive unrest as thousands of mostly young protesters, dubbed the Gen Z movement, marched through Mexico City on November 15, demanding justice for the assassination of reformist Mayor Carlos Manzo and calling out systemic issues of rising crime, corruptions, and government impunity. The demonstration began peacefully outside the National Palace, the official residence of President Claudia Sheinbaum, but quickly escalated into violent clashes as masked youth confronted riot police, breaking barricades, hurling stones, and storming security fences surrounding the presidential compound. The capital's main square transformed into what witnesses describe as a war zone-like battleground, with at least 120 people injured, 100 of them police officers, and 20 arrests reported by authorities. Similar protests erupted across multiple cities, including Michoacan, where Mayor Manzo was shot dead on November 1st, highlighting the nationwide scope of the anger over political violence and institutional failure. While protesters demanded accountability and concrete action against organized crime and corruption, President Sheinbaum dismissed the unrest as being fueled by right-wing opponents seeking to destabilize her administration, calling instead for peaceful demonstrations and dialogue. The movement has been primarily driven by younger generation who feel increasingly disillusioned with Mexico's political establishment, though it has gained significant backing from older supporters of opposition parties who share concerns about democratic backsliding and government ineffectiveness. What makes these protests particularly notable is their connection to a broader global trend of youth-led movement, with similar Gen Z demonstrations occurring in countries like Nepal earlier this year. where protests following a social media ban ultimately led to the resignation of the prime minister. In Mexico, many young people express frustration with systemic problems that have persisted for decades, corruptions that permeated all levels of government, impunity for violent crimes that leaves perpetrators unaccountable, and a sense that their future prospects are being stolen by entrenched criminal networks and corrupt officials. The adoptions of the One Piece flag, a symbol featuring a hat-wearing skull and crossbone, has become a unifying emblem for this global protest movement, appearing in demonstration from Mexico City to Kathmandu as a sign of solidarity among young people demanding change. The Mexican government faces mounting pressure to address these legitimate grievances while maintaining public order, a challenge that tests the balance between security concerns and democratic freedoms at a time when similar tensions are playing out across the globe. As winter approaches in the northern hemisphere, these converging crises, from political polarization in Washington to nuclear tension with Iran, energy insecurity in Serbia, and youth unrest in Mexico, paint a picture of a world grappling with complex challenges that transcend national borders and require coordinated international response that seem increasingly difficult to achieve in an era of resurgent great power competition and domestic political fragmentation. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. As global unrest converged from Washington protests over Epstein emails to Iran's nuclear standoff, Serbia's energy crisis, and Mexico's Gen Z revolution, do you believe these simultaneous crises represent coordinated geopolitical strategy by great powers, or are they organic expressions of systemic failures in governance, energy security, and social justice that could lead to a fundamental restructuring of world order, and why? Join the debate. We want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.